Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be making some adjustments to one of my 60p aquariums. This one's been running for a bit over 2 months now. I don't think I've featured it so much since the build series that I did on it. This one's a full ADA system. It features the Cube Cabinet Clear, the Superjet ES300, and the Aquasky RGB II. When the aquarium was first set up, there were some initial issues. Particularly, the plants melted back quite a bit. I assume this is because I was using the ADA substrate system and the ammonia was leaching into the water. I also had used a brand new filter also. I mitigated this with daily water changes, dosing Seachem Prime to a large enough degree that it detoxified the ammonia and the nitrites. I also added Seachem Stability to help speed up the biological filtration maturing. Plants ceased to melt, but it wasn't until I added a Siamese algae eater, some Autosynclus, and a mono shrimp where things really started to improve. Most of the plants recovered well enough, but the Blixa japonica just kept growing this weird hair algae on it. I see it a little bit on the Cyperus helferi, but it was particularly terrible on the Blixa. So in addition to doing a regular maintenance session on the aquarium, I'm also going to be removing the Blixa japonica and replacing it with some new plants. You might notice that there's some new fish added to the aquarium as well. I have a bunch of ember tetras that were added. I've actually had them in my quarantine system for a long time, but I was waiting until this aquarium was fully stable and ready for fish. You can see that there are a few Harlequin rasboras as well. I previously kept them in my 120p aquarium, but I've had some issues with that aquarium that I'll discuss in another video, so I added some of them in here as well. I know that by pulling out old plants and replacing them with new ones, that I'm going to create quite a mess. At first I'm just doing my regular maintenance practices, but it's going to end up getting quite messy in here anyway. I want to get the water level down low enough so that when I start replanting portions of the aquarium, I don't spill any water over. Also, the lower the water volume becomes, the easier I find it to plant. I just don't want to lower it too much and stress out the fish as a result. I knew that once I began pulling the Blixa up from the soil, the entire water clarity was going to become dirty. So I apologize that this isn't such a great view of the aquarium. I was surprised how strong the root structures were despite the algae on the leaves. I had tried trimming the leaves previously, but it didn't make any difference. I also think that it's quite interesting that the algae only resides on the Blixa and not on the hair grass at all. Since I made such a mess on the sand foreground that I had just cleaned prior, I drain the water down a bit further and do what I can to tidy up. From pulling up the plants, a lot of power sand was exposed. I tried manually removing what I could, but it seemed like I should replenish the soil with more Amazonia aqua soil anyway. I just pour a small amount from a cup. Off camera I add some Seachem Safe, which is similar to Prime. By stirring up all of the substrate like this, I want to make sure I'm not potentially harming any of the livestock with a potential ammonia spike, for example. I could have just added more Blixa japonica, but I thought it would be more fun to take the opportunity to try new plants in the aquarium. One of my goals for 2025 is to experiment with new plants. So I have 3 plants here, 2 of them I've never tried before. The first one is Rotala wallichi longleaf. This is my second time keeping this particular plant. I tried it a few years ago and was doing some experiments on it at the time. I would try different fertilizers for several weeks because I noticed that depending on the fertilization, this plant in particular grew in very different ways. It should grow in with a nice yellowish color, but perhaps more pink at the tips. We'll have to see since now I'm using the ADA fertilizers throughout the gallery, and the lower nitrate levels tend to bring out the colors more vibrantly. I'm planting the wallichi right next to the Cyperus helferi, since it can get quite tall as well. I wanted a plant that can nicely transition from the Cyperus helferi. I feel like since the Blixa japonica wasn't growing tall enough quickly, it was making this awkward transition in the composition. Next, I have a new plant here that I'm excited to try for the first time. It is Limnophila species Vietnam. Supposedly, it grows shorter than most stem plants, and almost in like a carpeting effect. Although it will mostly stay green, it has a similar leaf shape pattern to the wallichi, so I thought they could make for a great pairing. To keep balance in the layout, I'm planting the Limnophila on both the left and the right side of the aquarium. Without the Blixa japonica growing, I need to make sure there is some sort of transition from the eventually taller crypt balansae in the background to the stonework and the Anubias in the foreground. I was thinking about removing the Eleocharis parvula as well, but I thought I would keep it for now and see how crowded it gets in the background. From the left to the right, the background has the Cryptocoryne balansae, Cyperus helferi, Rotala wallichi, Limnophila Vietnam, and the Eleocharis parvula. That's pretty crowded for just a 60p aquarium. I still had one more plant to add. This one is Lagenandra keralensis. This one is also new to me as I've never kept any Lagenandra species before. I also opted for crypts, but I thought this would change it up for the midground. I planted some of it on the left and right side again, just like the Limnophila. I just have the Lagenandra planted closer to the front, so it's behind the driftwood but in front of the stem plants. Hopefully this effect creates some more depth in the layout and prevents it from feeling one-dimensional. Now that everything is planted, I'll fill up the aquarium. Since I made quite a mess, I'll perform what's called a running water change, in which new water is being added to the aquarium while old water continues to be removed. I continue draining for a short time to finish cleaning up all the debris that ended up in the hardscape and some of the plants. Thankfully, the new water that's being added to the aquarium was pre-treated, so besides some difference in hardness, the water is almost exactly the same. The little things like removing the water stains on the inside glass and netting out any loose leaves makes a huge difference in making a more professional, clean look to your aquarium. I always try to net out all the leaves before turning on the filter, that way they're not blown around in the aquarium. Once the filter and heater are plugged in, I use my TDS meter to check how much GH plus to add to the aquarium. I like to add the minerals through the outflow of the lily pipe, so it spreads more evenly around the aquarium and dissolves faster. Here's how the aquarium looks after it got filled up. Obviously the plants are not grown in at all yet, so you'll have to use your imagination to envision what it might look like in another month or two. I think these improvements are great and makes the layout a bit more creative. With this build, I originally only used plants that were left over from old aquariums, so I was limiting myself creatively by not choosing any new plants. So I think this is a good change in my opinion. I have some aquarium-related travel plans coming up in the next few months, so you might be seeing some interesting videos coming up in the future. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to stay updated. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.